Open up.
Clint Eastwood has reigned over the world of cinema for 60 years now. Yet this man, who is known the world over, remains a mystery. He fiercely guards his privacy and attacks those who talk about his private affairs without permission. His childhood, his life, his relationships with women, his lifestyle hold many secrets which we are about to unveil. Clint's career began in the early 50s. At 20, when he first arrived in Hollywood, the handsome actor was hired because of his attractive physique. But Clint was ready to take risks and seized every opportunity he could to become a star and later a superstar. At 40 years old, he became the highest paid actor in the world. Today, Clint is a monarch in the world of cinema. As a producer, he has amassed a huge fortune. As a director, he is hailed a genius. To understand this extraordinary man, we will take a look at some of the pivotal moments in his life. We head to Italy, where Clint Eastwood's journey began in 1964. At that time, he was but a starlet on American television, when director Sergio Leone offered him a role in a spaghetti western. The first scenes were shot here in Cinecittà. The film was called A Fistful of Dollars. The hero, the man with no name, would become an icon. Today we are here in these legendary studios with the American writer Patrick McGilligan, author of a brilliant and well-documented biography. Conscious of the effect that this would have on his image, Clint filed lawsuits to have this banned, but to no avail.
Clint was not Leone's first idea. Leone really had no idea of Clint. He didn't talk to him. His agent thought it would be a good idea for him. Clint wanted to leave America, so he took this job. He came to Italy, and Sergio Leone's assistant director told me that Sergio was too nervous even to go to the airport, so he had to go pick up Clint. They take him to his hotel room to meet Sergio. Clint opened up his suitcase, and he had everything he was going to wear, you know, the bolero and the serape. And I don't know about the cigarillo because Clint doesn't smoke, and some people say that that was Leone's. Leone's didn't say very much publicly about this first meeting, but he did say that Clint was dressed in bad taste, like most American students. But he liked his face, and he liked the way he walked, and he said to him, "We're going to make a good Western together." Clint went back to America. No one expected A Fistful of Dollars to be one of the most important Westerns ever made.
One man lucky enough to have witnessed that time in cinematic history still lives in Rome today. He is the acclaimed screenwriter who wrote for Sergio Leone, now 87 years old, and his name is Luciano Vincenzoni.
I met Clint the day after he arrived. He'd read the script for a few dollars more, which I had written for Sergio Leone. He was very happy to be making movies, because until then, he was a small television actor. With this film, he was about to play a main role. Physically, he was perfect for the part. No one in the world is able to work a gun like him. He was great. He was so fast. I've shot other westerns with other actors, but no one was as quick as him. Sergio Leone was really rough on him. He said Clint Eastwood is an actor who has one expression with his hat on and one without his hat. So that's two expressions, or one with a cigar and one without. I never judge Clint as an actor. I think that even if today, after all the movies he's made, he's not a great actor, he's still a great director. There's a difference. For the first film, he earned $25,000 and an economy class airline ticket. For the second film, $250,000 and 2 first-class airline tickets. For the third film, he earned $500,000 and he was lauded as a big international film star.
Sometime in about 1975, I went to Warner Brothers and I spent several hours talking to Clint alone, doing an interview with him. When you are alone with him, you feel the charm, the ease, the intelligence that everybody talks about that you sometimes don't see on screen in the roles. Then, as I started to work on the book and I started to talk to people in his life, they began to tell me a story that was the opposite in many ways of the myth and the legend of Clint.
Let us start our journey in search of our legend, heading to San Francisco, where he was born. To understand the Eastwood myth, we must cross a huge continent with uncharted territory. This Middle America is Clint's playground, where he shot most of his westerns and where his ancestors lived. The Bartholomews were Clint's great-grandparents. They ran a convenience store in Colorado where they sold foods and tools. Clint's great-grandmother, Sophia, was one of the pioneers of the new country. Here she is attending a women's meeting in the state of Kansas. Her husband, Charles Runner, was both a businessman, an actor, and a musician, and he owned a restaurant. In some ways, he was an older version of Clint. Art and business are in the family's genes.
Ladies and gentlemen, in preparation for landing, please bring your seat backs and tray tables to the upright position.
San Francisco is Clint's city. His roots are here. This is a place he always returns to. At birth, he was already a star, the most remarkable baby in the maternity ward.
He was born in 1930 in a San Francisco hospital, and he was 11 pounds 6 ounces. So the nurses, they called him Samson because he was the biggest baby on the ward. When all the mothers gathered together to learn how to change diapers, he was a diaper model, you know, as a baby. Clint was raised in the 30s. And some of his childhood memories are of shuttling up and down the California coast with his parents while his father's looking for work. They lived in LA for a couple of years. His father was pumping gas for a couple of years. And his father, by the time World War II came around, had found a very good paying job as a salesman in the paper industry. And they moved into a very, very comfortable middle class area called Piedmont in the Bay Area.
On the other side of the bay, in Piedmont, we find one of the houses that Clint Eastwood's family lived in when Clint was 12, at 107 Hillside Avenue. Clint has always claimed to have spent his childhood in working-class neighborhoods. But in reality, he belonged to a very privileged middle-class family and was educated in very good schools, such as this one, the Oakland Technical High School.
Clint was a prince of his kingdom. He was the oldest child. He was the male heir to the family name. And he was this beautiful boy that his mother liked to hold up over the fence to neighbors and say, "Isn't my son handsome?" You know, so he heard, you know, from growing up how beautiful and handsome he was. And I think that's been a big aspect of his success, of his confidence, the way he walks, the way he looks, the way he interacts with people.
The actor's striking looks would find the spotlight in the cult role of Inspector Harry. All films in the series were shot here in the streets of San Francisco. We have rented a car and hand the wheel over to journalist Jim Van Buskirk, who wrote a book about the movies made in this photogenic city. He takes us to the key places where Clint Eastwood's movies were filmed.
Yeah, when I wrote the book, I knew that a lot of movies had been filmed here, and then when I did the research, there were hundreds and hundreds of movies either shot in San Francisco or set in San Francisco and shot elsewhere. I think the fact that Clint Eastwood was born in San Francisco really resonates in his film. He knows how to use the city to its best effect, whether it's the gritty side of San Francisco or the beautiful side of San Francisco. He knows how to work the streets to showcase San Francisco and to make the city a character in his films. So yes, I think the fact that Clint Eastwood was born here is really important to the films that he shot here. I have an interesting story about Dirty Harry that I didn't know. The script was originally written for Frank Sinatra, and it was set in New York. And Frank Sinatra passed on the movie. He'd hurt his hand, and the gun was too big for his hand to hold. So then they offered the film to John Wayne. And John Wayne passed, and he said, "I'm not taking Frank Sinatra's rejects." And they asked Clint Eastwood, either at his request or by then, the script was set in San Francisco. It's a cinematographer's dream to shoot pictures here.
Night falls on San Francisco. We are ending the day by visiting the ultimate cult location, Alcatraz Island, the prison on which another hugely successful Clint Eastwood film was shot. Escape from Alcatraz. The next morning, we take the southern route to Los Angeles along the Californian coastline, which is dotted with places that have played a role in Clint Eastwood's life. Like Fort Ord, the huge former military base where Clint was called upon at age 21 to go to war in Korea.
Clint tried out to be a lifeguard, and because of the way he looks and because he could swim, he got this job as a lifeguard. And some people say that was really his first training as an actor, because you went through these lessons as a lifeguard about how to speak to people and how to move in certain situations. And it was, for him, a kind of maturation step. But It all happened in part to avoid going to Korea because there was this bloody, war going on and troops were being killed, and to be a lifeguarder kept you from going overseas.
Whenever he had the opportunity, Clint would go to have a good time in Carmel, the small neighboring beach resort.
When Clint was a young serviceman, he would go to Carmel, for night clubbing. In America, Carmel is famous for its beauty, being on the coast. When he becomes rich, he moves to Carmel. He has a house there. He starts a restaurant there. And the restaurant was famous in his circle as a place where Clint could meet women. So Carmel is, I think, really probably the home of his heart.
Carmel has hardly changed since that time, and it remains Clint's stronghold. He owns a golf course, several houses, and a ranch here. When he became famous, he even had a tennis tournament named after him. What's more, after having taken up politics, like his friend President Ronald Reagan, he was elected mayor in 1986 and remained mayor for 2 years. Ashley Wright, the historian of the city, opens up its archives to us.
This at the top here is one of his campaign posters. These articles are interesting because they represent a wide range of views about how people felt about Clint Eastwood running for mayor. The fact that he was a movie star, I think, really thrilled people. He'd been a long-time resident, so I think locals knew him, would see him around at his restaurant. But it was definitely exciting. The turnout for the vote was large, and there were news crews from all over the world to cover this mayoral election. These right here, looking very mayoral, I think. He is known for not preparing, but just speaking off the cuff. The reason why I wanted to pull this particular scrapbook out was to show you our brochure on Clint Eastwood's run for mayor. I'm running for mayor because there are some important, vital issues facing our city, and I know I can help solve these issues.
The world press flooded to Carmel to cover the election of Clint Eastwood, and did it with headlines and completely missed what was really going on, which was that he was having this love affair with another woman. And my theory is that Clint wanted to be mayor of Carmel so he wouldn't have to go home. And this was a pattern in his life, that he would get tired of the woman he was living with and have to build some alternative life somewhere else.
We will be able to understand later on what the biographer means by this. Traveling once again along the Pacific Ocean, we follow one of the most beautiful roads in the world, the State 1, between Carmel and Big Sur. On this side of the highway, in the midst of unspoilt nature, is where Clint chose to locate the action for the very first film he directed, A Chill in the Night, in 1971. Becoming a director would be a major turning point in Clint's life. Further south, in these arid hills overlooking the ocean, lives a very private man, and an important man in the life of Clint Eastwood. Their collaboration ended in a lawsuit. Today he is retired and lives in a large secluded property, hidden away from the world and far from the world of cinema. Jeremy Kronsberg wrote the screenplay and music for the movie Every Which Way But Loose, which was released in 1978. In his office, he still keeps memorabilia from this quirky film. It was a risky move, as it was the first time that Clint chose to act in a comedy, while the world still identified him with the character of Dirty Harry. In this film, he shared the lead with a monkey, And against all expectations, this would be the greatest commercial success of his career.
I try to sell it to all kinds of people. 47 people turned the script down before he got it. And the phone rings, and my wife answers it, and she says, "It's Clint Eastwood." I said, "Yeah?" She said, "Yeah, Clint Eastwood." I said, "Okay." And Clint's introduced himself. He said, "I really like your script. Would you like to come and talk to me about it?" He was very friendly, and I had no problems communicating with him. And there's Clint and I. This was on the road in Colorado. We were discussing regarding one of the scenes. I think Clint knows Clint Eastwood very well, but he's not a comedian. He doesn't understand comedy. In comedy, you set up a joke, and then you pay it off at the end. For example, there's a scene where they're at a campfire, and Clint is pouring out his heart. He says, "When I meet a girl, I turn to royal gelatin," which is like Jell-O. And the camera pulls back, and you see he's talking to the ape. He's pouring out his heart to the ape. That's another joke. I got in trouble on this one because we're in the limousine, and we're driving to the location. It was the director and the cameraman. And Jim Fargo says, "We'll open up in a two-shot of Clint and the orangutan." I said, "Hold it. You can't do that. Because if you open up on the two of them, there's no scene. You've already tipped off the joke." Clint was the #1 star in the world at the time, or close to it. And everyone was afraid to talk to him. But I would go up and knock on his door and say, "Clint, we have to talk," because I just wanted to make the script as good as possible. I think he got unhappy. And when we got to Denver, Colorado, my hometown, Fritz Manus, who was his associate producer, and he came up to me and he said, "Clint doesn't want you to be on the set anymore, Jeremy." And I realized that Clint did not like to confront people. He won't look you in the eye and tell you he's unhappy. He would kind of sub rosa go behind the scenes and let somebody else do the dirty work, but he was not a confrontational person. He plays those characters, but that's not who he is. Then I found out afterwards they changed all the songs. Then I found out they invited all the people to the big party to sell the picture in Texas, and I wasn't invited. We were able to settle our legal differences because by settling it means they pay you more money than they want to, but less than they owe you. The movie became such a success that it's helped me a great deal, and it taught me a great deal. I don't have bad feelings. I can't carry bad feelings. I can't live that way. That's not who I am. My life is too good, and so I wish him well. And what I'm sure he's got himself to deal with. I wasn't being paid by the studio, and he was, I think it was we were suing him, or we were deposing him. When Clint walked in for his deposition, the referee said to Clint, "Could I have your autograph?" And I looked at the judge, and I looked over at Clint, he looked at me, and we both started laughing. And that's the last time I saw him.
We are on our way to Los Angeles on the famous US Route 101 through vast agricultural plains. When he was a child, Clint's family traveled these highways during the Great Depression of the 30s, his father looking for work all over California. There are virtually no pictures of Clint's parents or of him as a child, as he keeps anything to do with this period of his life locked away in his private possessions. In 1982, however, he made a film about this time in his life, Honky Tonk Man. It is possibly this nomadic childhood experience that has led Eastwood to choose roles in which he plays the uprooted individual, the cowboys roaming the arid land. We are on our final approach to Los Angeles. Endless suburban sprawls where missionaries, colonists, gold diggers, migrants, and ambitious cohorts came to settle in search of Hollywood fame. Clint Eastwood was one of these anonymous hopefuls when he was just 20 years old. The Dream Factory has shattered many a young actor's dreams, but it has also put some of the biggest stars into orbit for all eternity. After our first day on Californian soil, we now set off into the night in this city of angels, ending up on Sunset Boulevard, where, to get into the entertainment business, you have to show yourself off here. Clint Eastwood's fame continues to this day. His latest film, that has just been released, invades the advertising spaces. Since the 1960s, Clint Eastwood films have reigned in the cinematic kingdom. Clint may now be an iconic figure, but his journey to get there was quite a story. It all started here after his military service. Clint came to try his luck here in Hollywood and was noticed by a gay director called Arthur Lubin, who was making films for Universal Studios. He was struck by Clint's beautiful face, his 6'4" stature, and his athletic body.
Well, there's some mystery about how Clint actually got to Hollywood and started acting. Arthur Lubin went to see him where he was working at a gas station and put him under contract and brought him into Universal to join their young talent school.
In this photo from the early 50s, we see Clint attend a class where Marlon Brando had come to meet the students.
But they had to do screen tests of him to see what he was able to do. And I think the first screen test is very dramatic and very intense. And Clint really didn't come off. You know, he was completely untrained. And one of Arthur Lubin's assistants had another idea. Let's put him in like a skimpy bathing suit, almost a jockstrap, and let's film him and just ask him some questions. Arthur Lubin and saw him as Beefcake. It's a funny part of his persona, and I comment on it in my book, and that he loves to take off his clothes in movies, that he's often in the bathtub or he has his shirt off. And, you know, it's not true of all stars. It's not true of all male stars in particular. So this early idea that I'm sure he was aware of and was implanted in his psychology, that he looks so good in front of the camera with his shirt off, you know, carries through for the whole rest of his career. Even now, when he's in his 80s, and certainly when he was in his 70s, he was playing characters sometimes who could barely get out of bed. You know, they're old, he's creaking. But then in the important scene where the villain's running, he's running as fast as they are. You know, he's always showing himself off physically. That was a very, very important part of his psychology, because that is why he was hired. And Arthur Lubin said it to me. He said he was so handsome, he was just prime beefcake.
Clint had other ambitions. He wanted to learn how to perform. While under contract with Universal, he took lessons with a boxing coach. He landed small roles in B-movies, such as Francis in the Navy and The First Traveling Saleslady. Fortunately, during these first difficult years, Clint found a serious girlfriend who supported him financially.
Well, when Clint was at Fort Ord, he was seeing a number of women, and he met his future wife, Maggie, who was a college girl, and which Clint had never gone to college. But they really hit it off immediately. When they first moved down to Los Angeles, she had the better job. She was a swimsuit model for a while. They surprised everyone by getting married so fast, and were married in Christmas of 1953 in Pasadena. If you see pictures of them from that time, they look like pictures of two models. Very beautiful, very young, and they look from the pictures to be very much in love.
The young newlyweds settled down in a residence located in the heart of the San Francisco Valley, not far from Universal Studios. This is where many young and ambitious actors lived.
And a lot of these people lived at a place called the Villa Sands, which was a classic California motel with a huge swimming pool. There was a lot of partying. They really were young people that were all looking for a golden future. Pretty straight crowd, I mean, a beer crowd.
Clint loved women. After their move to Villa Sands, Maggie was faced with huge female competition.
All kinds of people lived there, and people like Anita Ekberg would come over and have like a photo shoot in her bikini swimming suit. One actress who was living there, Lily Cardell, was dating James Dean. It's funny because Clint looked a little bit like James Dean, except he's incredibly tall. And Dean, of course, was already a legend. He came by one time to pick up Lily Cardell. Clint happened to stop by, and Dean is kind of languorously on the couch and says, hi, you know, and Clint says, God damn it, boy, stand up and shake a hand when you want to say hi. And he really kind of like took him aback. And then when Dean stood up, Clint supposedly gave him one of those slow, like half-kidding smiles. His friends from that time told me he had many girlfriends that he would brag about to them privately when Maggie wasn't around. And sometimes they were relatively famous people, like Jane Mansfield. One friend told me came to a party at Villa Sands in a kind of remarkable outfit, and then she and Clint disappeared for a while. And afterwards, Clint, you know, boasted that he and Jane had had a secret good time off in another part of the motel.
At that time, it was Maggie who made the money in the Eastwood household. Despite a pleasant and seemingly carefree life in sunny California, Clint was struggling. Universal did not renew his contract, and he took on any little minor roles that came his way. Here he is in 1957 in the television series West Point Story. It was at that time that he decided to give up acting. But in the end, he persevered and took a theatre course with a coach named Jack Coslin, who would become his mentor, and so his luck would turn.
Privately, people had begun to see his potential. He had done very good in a couple small little roles. In acting classes, sometimes he was very impressive. Sometimes he would improvise and he would just blow everybody away in the room. So privately, people saw that, but publicly, he had not yet begun to emerge. And he was really thinking of quitting when this television show came along about a cattle drive, Rawhide, and he got one of the two main roles, actually the second. That show was almost immediately a top 10 hit in America. He played a part that initially was very similar to a quiet, you know, guy who in moments of when you really need him, shows his mettle. And a lot of charm and a lady pleaser. He became tremendously successful as a result of Rawhide.
Clint's career took off, and above all, it started earning him a very good living. This allowed him to invest in a house on Beverly Glen. This house that Clint and Maggie owned at the time still exists, hidden among a small path up in the hills overlooking the valley. It was a happy time for Clint as he enjoyed his new status as a celebrity. He did the promotion for Rawhide here in Las Vegas with a starlet. He had a collection of pretty girls such as swimming champion Anita Löst. Maggie was unaware of her husband's escapades or pretended that she didn't know.
I spoke to some of Clint's girlfriends during the early 1960s when I was researching my book, and most of them still liked him or were fond of him, found him to be a wonderful, funny, party guy. Kitty Jones was one, and her friend Jill Banner. They were kind of famous party girls in Hollywood. And some people in this group, or people that they partied with, you know, people like Elvis Presley and Marlon Brando, who were kicking around Hollywood at the time. But he was really leading a double life at that time. He was leading a life of a happily married American television star, while at the same time he was really living a wild life behind the scenes with various girlfriends. One was a stunt girl who had small parts on Rawhide. Clint actually had a very serious love affair with her. Her name was Roxanne Tunis. And everybody at Rawhide knew they had a relationship. Some people knew they had a child. And Clint would go home with Roxanne and stroll the baby around the block, and then he'd say goodbye to her, and then he'd go home to Maggie and have something to eat, and then go out and party all night with his male friends.
Clint's life was complicated. He had one child with his mistress, and then another child several years later with his wife Maggie. This is a picture of Clint and Roxanne's daughter, Kimber Tunis, born in 1964. The press would not reveal her existence until 20 years later. Rawhide was therefore a key time in the building of Clint's legendary image.
The way he structured his contract, he probably could have put that money away and never worked again. Instead, what happened was Sergio Leone came along. He was looking for a sort of a low-profile American actor to play in a low-profile spaghetti western. Clint was eager to move on to a higher realm. He wanted to do something beyond Rawhide, so he took the job.
It was in taking this major risk that Clint seized the opportunity to become an international star. From this moment on, things started to fall into place. He had a string of successes, mainly with cowboy roles. Here, the actor poses with director Ted Post on the set of Hang 'em High, and here with Roxanne Tunis, who had come to visit him on the set. Here, he is pictured on the set of the movie The Begilded, with another of his long-term girlfriends, Joanne Harris. But Clint would also take on the role of a cop in films like Dirty Harry, a move that would secure his dazzling future success. On the set, he associated himself with one of the most brilliant directors of the 70s, Don Siegel, who taught him the trade. This triumph gained him access to the highest realms in Hollywood. In this historic photo, Clint Eastwood poses with Barbra Streisand, Rock Hudson, John Wayne, and Yves Montand, among others. Clint's soaring trajectory made him one of the most powerful and richest men in Hollywood, and most certainly one of the last screen giants of the golden era, along with Marlon Brando, James Dean, or Marilyn Monroe. Having reached these heights, Clint remained married to Maggie. This is a photograph of them together at his 40th birthday party with their first child, Kyle, who had just turned 2. They would even have a second child together, a girl named Allison, born in 1972. What Maggie didn't know was that Clint had many extramarital affairs and relationships, some being so stable one could call them polygamy. In Hollywood, we have an appointment with Sandra Locke, an actress who began living with Clint in 1975, although he was still married to Maggie. Their love affair lasted almost 15 years and ended in a grueling separation with 2 high-profile trials. She still bears a grudge against her ex, which is why she agrees to speak to us today.
Clint has said so many things, bad things about me to the media, since we split up. And, he has so much more access and power to do that. And he said things that were hurtful to my character and hurtful to me professionally. And that's it. It's not really to to attack Clint again or battle him again or say anything necessarily, certainly nothing untrue about him. It's really to talk about what happened to me and to present myself. And that's my reason.
Sandra wrote a book where she talks of her experience with Clint. When she dared to challenge him before a court of law, he banished her from the world of cinema.
He is certainly an icon, and he was probably one of the last big glamour movie stars. Beyond that, on a personal level, I don't have anything good to say.
We drive to her house, hidden on a hillside. She tells us about her first meeting with Clint in 1975 on the set of the film The Outlaw Josie Wales.
We were shooting in Lake Powell, Arizona. It was really beautiful there. Oh my God, and the lakes and the sky, it was just a gorgeous place and very, very romantic. And it was just an immediate attraction between the two of us. He came riding in on a horse in his full Outlaw Josie Wales attire, and he had a beard, which probably you remember in that film. It was just sort of magical, you know, it was a magical moment because he was that, you know, iconic cowboy on the horse. And I think we were both very much in love for a very long time. We were very happy together for a very long time. He did ask me to call him Daddy. He was like a big shoulder. I perceived him as like a rock and someone that I could always rely on. And he was, you know, older, you know, by many years. And so the dynamic that we had through much of those years together, and maybe why it worked so well, because I was the child and he was the father.
Maggie, being more and more absent from the life of her husband, moved to Carmel with her children. When Clint met Sandra, he moved into the Beverly Glen house with her, where he had lived with Maggie at the time of Rawhide.
I didn't feel really comfortable there because of that, because it was still exactly as it was when he and Maggie had lived in that house. And I told him that I would like another house. And so I found this house on Stradella Road. It was a nice sort of Monterey Spanish house.
In the vast private residence in Bel Air, where stars and millionaires reside, we find the Stradella Road house.
Approaching destination on the right.
It is hard to imagine what went on behind these gates, but Sandra Locke shows us an amateur video she had made during the time when she lived there with Clint in the early 80s.
The balcony was just straight little sticks, that's all it was. And so I put in all had all the posts turned, exact copy of these other ones and the little posts. I did that. This was like, it was just a wall here. There was a wall right here, and these were like plaster posts that just went up to this beam here. So what I did was I knocked out the whole wall. I kind of put different pieces of different beds together, and I had this made. A company in Texas made it for me.
I did everything myself. I found every piece of fabric, every piece of furniture, and I was in love with every inch of the whole place. What happened that prompted Clint to run for mayor of Carmel was that he owned this restaurant, the Hog's Breath Inn, and he wanted to put up a building next to it, I think, and it exceeded the height requirement that the city would allow. And so they denied him his plan to do this. And I remember his saying to me, well, I'm going to do what I want to do if I have to run the city hall. And so then he said, I'm going to run for mayor. So he ran for mayor, he was elected, and I believe he put up his building just as he wanted. I did write this in my book as just an anecdote. As we were flying into Carmel from Los Angeles, probably, he said, look down, there's Carmel, there's my kingdom. Actually, once we were in Washington, D.C., When Reagan was president, we were in a limo, it was evening, and we were driving around D.C., and the buildings were all lit, and it was beautiful. And he said, "Look, Sweetie," because Sweetie is one of the things he called me, "this could all be ours." And I thought, oh, no, I don't think so. I can't imagine that ever happening, but I certainly don't picture myself in that scenario. We were in love, and it was great and all that, but I felt this need to do something on my own at that point. The relationship began to change when I started directing. And I wanted to direct. I expressed my interest in directing, and I found a script, Rat Boy. He felt that he was losing control of me. There was something threatening about my starting to direct and moving away from that daddy, little girl, actress, director cocoon that we had sort of lived in. He just became more and more distant at the same time, and he would disappear suddenly and not tell me he was leaving town, and then the next thing I knew, I came home and he was in Carmel.
That would be the end of their love story, and she was set to learn the hard way that there is another side to Clint Eastwood.
And he sent a letter from his attorney telling me not to go home, that the locks had been changed on the house. And my clothes were in storage and that I could pick them up. I had the audacity, when he locked me out of the house, to go get a lawyer. I wanted my home back.
Sandra never got her house back, in spite of the trials against Clint, during which she had to face ferocious lawyers. Unfortunately, this is not the worst of it.
I had received a phone call from a journalist who wrote for the tabloid magazines. And he said, "Do you know about a house on such and such a street in Carmel that's in the name of Clint's business manager?" And I said, "No, I don't know anything about that. We had a house on another address in Carmel." And he said, "Well, Clint has a woman there, and he has 2 children with her." When I got that, I just thought, oh my God, either he changed from white to black, or I've been living with somebody I didn't even know.
Having been so bitterly disappointed by this showbiz giant, Sandra still feels the need to speak her truth. It is only after dark that she agrees to show us around inside her current house, which is full of remnants, personal history, and memories. It is a very intimate refuge, where she lives alone, away from the world of showbiz.
This is my home now, and this is the kind of decor, and I did a lot of things here similar to what I'd done in Stradella House. So I'm very happy about having recreated it for myself. So thank you for coming. And you can see a little bit of Hollywood in the distance.
Hollywood sparkled, and in the 90s, after having left Sonderlock, Clint would go on to show just how powerful he truly was. His life would be paved by success and honors. While his mistress, an air hostess named Jacqueline Reeves, had just given birth to 2 of Clint's illegitimate children in Carmel, he met the actress Frances Fisher, who he moved in with, and with whom he also had a child. He gave Frances a role in the movie Unforgiven. In 1993, Clint Eastwood received the ultimate accolade for this film, the Oscar for Best Director and Best Film. Only a partial victory, however, as his peers did not grant him the Oscar for Best Actor. An Oscar that he would never win. However, his private life was comparable to a soap opera, with many twists and much drama.
In 1993, when he was promoting Unforgiven, he met a young television news reporter named Dina Ruiz. He was smitten by her, and he began to see her secretly, even though he was still theoretically with Frances Fisher. When Clint went to the Oscars for Unforgiven, Frances Fisher was pregnant, but he didn't want her to tell anybody. And Francis Fisher was very quickly shunted aside, and Clint began to be seen more and more with Dina Ruiz, and he got married within 3 years. He was married in 1996 in Las Vegas. They've stayed happily married, at least as far as we know, to this day. We don't know how many children Clint has had with how many women. We don't know exactly. One was when he was still in high school, and I tell that story. Then there's Kimber Tunis, the daughter he had with Roxanne Tunis. Then there's the 2 children that he has with Maggie, his first wife. Then there's the 2 children that he had with Jacqueline Reeves when he was mayor of Carmel. Then there's Francis Fisher's daughter. Then there's the 1 child that he has with Dina Ruiz. I heard of other possibilities when I was doing my book. Since his marriage to Dina Ruiz and their children together, I don't think he's been with any other woman that's been reported in the press to date.
With Dina Ruiz, Clint's career entered its heyday. He obtained true professional recognition. Numerous awards and honors from all over the world were bestowed upon him, and his work was critically acclaimed. One of these was The Bridges of Madison County in 1995. Another was $1 Million Baby in 2004. And Gran Torino in 2008. In a Hollywood career that has spanned nearly 60 years, Clint has gone from playing bit part roles to becoming a superstar.